Captain Jake Morrison stared at the holographic display, showing the Zephyrian homeworld growing smaller behind his ship. 3 months of talks had ended in complete failure. The aliens wanted humanity to hand over their quantum computer designs as payment for crimes humans never committed. Jake called it theft. His communication officer turned around with worry in her eyes. "Captain, Admiral Carter wants to speak with you right away." Jake nodded and walked to his private quarters. The face of Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the screen. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes told Jake she had been dealing with more bad news from across the galaxy. "Let me guess," Lisa said before Jake could speak. "They wanted our technology and gave us nothing in return." "Worse than that," Jake replied. "They acted like we owed them our best inventions just for letting us exist in their space. The Zephyrian ambassador actually laughed when I said we deserved equal treatment." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. "Jake, this is the 7th failed mission this year. Every species we try to work with treats us like servants instead of partners. They take our medical advances, our engineering breakthroughs, our agricultural improvements, and then tell us we should be grateful they let us help them." Jake had seen it himself on dozens of worlds. Human doctors saved millions of alien lives, but were never promoted to head positions. Human engineers designed the power systems that lit entire planets, but alien supervisors took all the credit. Human farmers developed crops that ended hunger on 12 different worlds, but were paid less than alien workers doing simple tasks. "There's something else," Lisa continued. "The Confederation Council just passed Resolution 2847. They want all human colonies to abandon the Kepler systems." "What?" Jake stood up quickly. "Those are our worlds. We found them. We built the cities. We turned dead rocks into garden planets. What right do they have?" "The Valdorian Empire claims those systems belonged to their ancestors a million years ago. Never mind that they showed no interest in those worlds until we made them valuable. Never mind that we have families living. Their children who were born there. The Council sided with the Valdorians because they have more votes than we do." Jake felt anger burning in his chest.
Ow.
"How many people will have to move?" 8 million humans across 14 colonies. "And Jake, they're giving us 6 months to evacuate completely. 6 months to abandon everything our people built over 30 years. The call ended, and Jake stared at the blank screen. He thought about his sister's family living on New Colorado in the Kepler 442 system. His nephew had just started school there. His niece was getting married next spring. In 6 months, they would all be refugees. Back on Earth, President Martin. Hayes sat in the emergency session of the Earth Assembly. The great hall buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from every human world and colony had come to discuss the crisis. Dr. Susan Blake stood at the main podium. She was Earth's top expert on alien societies and had studied galactic politics for 40 years. Her report painted a grim picture. 73 years we have been members of the Galactic Confederation, she began. In that time, humans have made incredible contributions to galactic civilization. And we developed the medical nanobots that extended lifespans for 37 different species. We created the quantum fusion reactors that powered 2/3 of all space stations. We designed the trade algorithms that keep the galactic economy stable. She pressed a button, and numbers appeared on the big screen behind her. According to my research, humans are responsible for 47% of all major technological advances in the Confederation over the past 50 years. Yet we hold only 3% of leadership positions in government, military, and commercial organizations. Senator Ryan Cooper raised his hand. "Dr. Blake, surely the situation isn't as bad as you make it sound. We have made progress. Humans serve on important committees and advisory boards." "Advisory boards," Dr. Blake repeated. "We advise, they decide. We create, they profit. We solve their problems, they take the credit." "Senator Cooper, when was the last time a human was promoted to a position where they could actually make decisions that mattered?" Cooper looked uncomfortable but didn't answer. Senator Claire Davis stood up. "I'll answer that question. Never. In 73 years, no human has ever been given real authority over anything important in galactic affairs. We're seen as useful tools, not equals." The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued that leaving the Confederation would make things worse. Others demanded immediate action. President Hayes listened to every speaker before calling for a final vote. "We have three choices," he said. "We can accept Resolution 2847 and continue being second-class citizens. We can fight it and probably lose, making our situation even worse. Or we can choose a third option." He paused and looked around the room. "We can leave. We can withdraw from all galactic treaties, recall all our people, and cut all ties with the Confederation. We can show them what the galaxy looks like without human contributions." The room fell silent. Leaving meant isolation. It meant giving up the dream of being part of something bigger than humanity. But it also meant keeping their dignity. The vote was close. Many representatives feared what isolation might bring. Would alien species attack Earth?
How would humans be?
Banned from traveling between stars? Would they lose access to alien technologies? But the anger was stronger than the fear. Stories poured in from across the galaxy. Human scientists fired from research projects they had started. Human engineers, replaced by aliens who couldn't do the work as well. Human merchants cheated in deals, because everyone knew humans had no political power to fight back. Dr. Susan Blake cast the deciding vote. "I have spent my career studying alien civilizations, trying to understand how we could fit in with them. But I have learned something important. They don't want us to fit in. They want us to serve. I say we show them the difference." The final count was 847 votes for withdrawal, 753 against. President Hayes signed the order that night, within hours. The message went out to every alien government, every trade organization, every military alliance. Earth was withdrawing from all galactic institutions. All human personnel would be recalled. Within 1 year, all human technology sharing would end immediately. All trade agreements were canceled. All military cooperation would cease. The message was short and formal, but its meaning was clear. Humanity was done being treated like children who should be grateful for any attention they received. Admiral Lisa Carter received her orders the next morning. Bring every human home, every scientist, every engineer, every doctor, every teacher. Every worker in alien space was to return to human territory. The largest evacuation in galactic history was about to begin. She looked at the list of locations where humans worked. Medical stations treating plague victims, power plants supplying energy to entire sectors, farms feeding billions of aliens, communication networks connecting distant worlds. Humans were everywhere, keeping galactic civilization running. Soon, they would all be gone. The aliens had always assumed humans would never leave. They thought humans needed the galaxy more than the galaxy needed humans. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Captain Jake Morrison received new orders as his ship approached Earth. Instead of preparing for another diplomatic mission, he was to help coordinate the withdrawal. His exploration vessel would become a transport ship, carrying humans away from the worlds they had helped build. As Earth grew larger on his view screen, Jake wondered what would happen next. Would the aliens realize their mistake and offer better treatment? Would they attack Earth in anger? Would they simply find other species to exploit? He didn't know the answers, but he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. For the first time since joining the galactic community, humans were making their own choices about their future. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to lose. The most innovative, hardworking, and capable species they had ever encountered. Earth had cut all ties, and nothing would ever be the same. 3 months had passed since Earth announced its withdrawal from the Galactic Confederation. Ambassador Velfacra of the Hegemony stood before the Emergency Council session, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dismissal. "This human tantrum will end soon," he declared to the assembled alien leaders. "They are like children who threaten to run away from home. Give them a few months of isolation, and they will come crawling back, begging to rejoin civilized society." Chancellor Crix of the Trade Federation nodded his massive head in agreement. "My economic advisors predict the humans will return within 1 standard year. They cannot survive without galactic trade and technology. We simply need to be patient." Patience was becoming harder to maintain as reports flowed in from across the galaxy. The first signs of trouble had appeared within weeks of the human departure. Commander Alex Barnes stood in the massive hangar bay of transport. Station Delta, watching another group of human evacuees board the passenger ship New Horizon. As Earth's coordinator for the recall operation, he had seen the scope of human presence across the galaxy. The numbers were staggering. "Sir," his assistant called out, "we have a problem on Proxima Verti. The medical station is completely shut down." Alex looked at his datapad. Proxima Verti was a major hub world with over 2 billion inhabitants. The medical station there treated patients from 12 different species and had been running continuously for 35 years. "What about the alien medical staff?" Alex asked. "There are only 7 non-human doctors and nurses on the entire station. The rest of the staff was human." Dr. Rachel Evans was the chief medical officer. She supervised over 400 human medical personnel. Alex felt a cold worry in his stomach. What's happening to the patients? "The alien staff is trying to handle emergency cases only." "But sir, they don't understand how to operate most of the medical equipment. The diagnostic machines, the surgical robots, the treatment pods, they were all designed by humans and maintained by human technicians." Similar reports came in from dozens of worlds. Human doctors and nurses had staffed hospitals across the galaxy. Human medical researchers had developed treatments for diseases that had plagued alien species for centuries. Human technicians maintained the complex medical equipment that modern alien medicine depended on. On the industrial world of Titan's Rest, Chief Engineer Tony Miller finished his final inspection of the quantum fusion reactor complex. The massive facility provided power to half the sector, including 3 major space stations and 2 heavily populated planets. The alien engineer who was supposed to replace him, a Valdorian named Krexmuller, followed Tony through the reactor chamber with obvious confusion. "The quantum field stabilizers need recalibration every 47 hours, Tony explained for the 3rd time. "If the resonance frequency drops below 7.2 terahertz, you have maybe 6 minutes before a complete containment failure," Krexmuller made notes on his data device, but Tony could see the alien didn't really understand. The Valdorian had spent years watching human engineers work, but had never learned the underlying principles. Like most aliens, he had assumed the technology was simple because humans made it look easy. "What happens if I make a mistake?" Krexmuller asked nervously. Tony looked at the massive reactor core. Its quantum fields containing energy equivalent to a small star. The explosion would destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers. 3 billion people live in that radius. 2 weeks after Tony left Titan's Rest, the reactor complex experienced its first major malfunction. The alien technicians tried to follow Tony's written instructions, but quantum engineering required intuitive understanding, not just following procedures. The reactor scrammed automatically, shutting down completely to prevent disaster. Half the sector lost power instantly. Space stations switched to backup systems that could only last a few weeks. Planets went dark as energy grids failed. Industrial production stopped. Life support systems struggled to function. Kevin Johnson sat in his office on Earth, analyzing economic data streaming in from across the galaxy. As a former trade analyst for the Galactic Commerce Bureau, he understood how interconnected the galactic economy had become. "The shipping situation is getting worse," he reported to Admiral Lisa Carter. "The Terran Shipping Consortium handled 68% of all interstellar cargo transport. Where their ships were called, the remaining carriers can't handle the volume." "What kind of delays are we seeing?" Lisa asked. "It's not just delays. Entire trade routes have shut down. Human captains didn't just fly the ships. They planned the routes, negotiated the contracts, managed the logistics. The aliens have cargo sitting in warehouses because they don't know how to get it where it needs to go." The Galactic Stock Exchange, based on the neutral world of Finance Prime, experienced its first major crash in 2 centuries. Human economists had designed the complex algorithms that prevented market manipulation and maintained stability. Without their oversight, wild speculation and panic trading destroyed trillions of credits in value within days. Meanwhile, Commander Sarah Thompson was busy implementing Earth's new defensive strategy. Project Fortress involved consolidating human colonies, building new defense platforms, and most importantly, securing all human technology. How long until the quantum encryption is complete? She asked her technical team. Another 6 weeks, Commander, replied her chief scientist. Every piece of human technology in alien hands will be locked down. They won't be able to copy it, modify it, or even understand how it works. This was perhaps the most devastating blow to galactic civilization. For decades, aliens had freely used human innovations without truly understanding them. Human scientists had shared their knowledge openly, believing cooperation would benefit everyone. Now that sharing had ended abruptly, the consequences appeared everywhere. On the agricultural world of Greenhaven, the genetically modified crops that fed 4 billion people began failing. Human botanists had designed plants that could grow in alien soil conditions, but maintaining them required constant adjustments that only human scientists understood. The crop yields dropped by 60% in the first harvest season after the human departure. Famine threatened multiple worlds as food supplies dwindled. The aliens had become so dependent on human agricultural innovations that they had forgotten how to grow their own traditional crops. Dr. Amy Roberts, now serving on Earth Science Council, received desperate messages from alien researchers across the galaxy. The medical nanobots that extended lifespans for dozens of species were beginning to malfunction. These microscopic robots required regular updates and maintenance that only human biotechnology could provide. Without the updates, the nanobots will start attacking healthy tissue instead of repairing damage. Amy explained to President Martin Hayes, "We're looking at a medical catastrophe affecting hundreds of billions of alien lives. Can we help them?" the president asked. Technically, yes, but they would need to acknowledge human expertise and pay fair compensation for our services. Would need to treat us as equals, not servants. The president was quiet for a long moment. Send them the terms. If they want our help, they know what they need to do. The military situation grew equally desperate. Admiral Zek Vorthok of the Hegemony Fleet discovered that human tactical doctrine had become integral to joint military operations. Human officers had developed communication protocols, battle strategies, and coordination systems that the combined alien fleets had used for decades. When the Skoroth pirates launched their largest offensive in 50 years, the Confederation military response was chaotic. Ships couldn't communicate effectively. Battle plans fell apart. Supply lines collapsed. The pirates, who had been contained for decades by human-led operations, suddenly found themselves facing confused and disorganized opponents. The Confederation fleet suffered its first major defeat in over a century. Entire star systems fell to pirate control as the military command structure crumbled without human leadership and coordination. Ambassador Helen Wright watched the crisis unfold from Earth's diplomatic center. She had served as Earth's representative to the Confederation for 15 years before the withdrawal. Now she monitored alien communications as desperate pleas for help flooded in from across the galaxy. "They're calling it the Great Breakdown," she reported to President Hayes. "Food shortages, power failures, medical crises, economic collapse, and military defeats. All happening at the same time. Any official requests for negotiations?" President asked. "No, they're still too proud to admit they need us. But the private messages are getting more desperate every day." The most critical failure was happening to the Nexus Gate network. These ancient transportation portals had connected the galaxy for millennia, allowing instant travel between distant stars. Various alien species had maintained them using traditional methods that worked but were inefficient. Human physicist Dr. Carl Nelson had developed quantum stabilization techniques that made the gates more reliable and energy efficient. His improvements had been implemented across the entire network over the past 20 years. Now, without human maintenance, the gates were becoming unstable. Several had already shut down completely, cutting off entire sectors from the rest of galactic civilization. 6 months after Earth's withdrawal, the galaxy was burning, not with actual fire, but with the collapse of everything that had made modern civilization possible. General Chris Anderson sat in his intelligence office on Earth, reading reports that painted a picture of complete system failure. across dozens of worlds. The morning briefing started with the Vorthon Republic. This proud civilization had ruled 12 star systems for over 1,000 years. Their worlds were known for efficient government and happy citizens. But now their food distribution network had completely failed. Vorthons are facing mass starvation, Anderson's aide reported. Their entire supply chain was managed by human-designed computer systems. The algorithms that tracked food production, calculated shipping needs, and managed warehouse storage were all created by human programmers. Anderson looked at the detailed reports. 3 of the Vorthon core worlds had only 2 weeks of food remaining. The alien programmers who had taken over the systems couldn't understand the complex code that human engineers had written. They had tried to fix problems by changing random settings, making everything worse. "What about their emergency food reserves?" Anderson asked. "We can't access them. The warehouse management systems are locked down with quantum encryption. Only human technicians knew the access codes." Similar disasters were happening across the galaxy. On the medical research station orbiting Healing Prime, Dr. Amy Roberts received a desperate message from her former colleague, an alien physician named Velkaroth. "Dr. Roberts, please help us," the message began. "The medical nanobots are killing our patients instead of healing them. We have tried everything, but we don't understand how to reprogram them. 3 million people will die without the next software update." Amy had worked with Velkaroth for 8 years before the withdrawal. The alien was a skilled surgeon, but had never learned the biotechnology behind the nanobots. Like most aliens, he had simply trusted that human scientists would always be there to handle the technical details. The nanobots were designed to repair damage inside living bodies. They could fix broken bones, clear blocked arteries, and destroy cancer cells. But they needed constant updates to recognize new threats and avoid attacking healthy tissue. Without these updates, the tiny robots began treating normal body functions. As diseases to be eliminated, Amy showed the message to her supervisor. "We could save them," she said. "It would take maybe 6 hours to write the new code." "What are they offering in return?" her supervisor asked. Amy checked the message again. "Nothing. They expect us to help them for free, just like before. Then, they can figure it out themselves." The military situation grew worse each day. Scorth pirates had expanded their territory by 300%, capturing trade stations and enslaving entire populations. The Confederation fleet seemed powerless to stop them. Admiral Zek Vorthok of the Hegemony made his 3rd attempt to organize a joint defense operation. The meeting was held on the neutral world of Strategy Prime, with representatives from 12 different military organizations. "We must coordinate our efforts," the Admiral declared. "The pirates are using hit-and-run tactics that we cannot counter with individual fleet actions." But the meeting quickly dissolved into chaos. Each species had different communication systems, different tactical doctrines, and different ideas about leadership. Without human officers to translate between the various military cultures and coordinate joint operations, the alien commanders couldn't agree on anything. The Hegemony wanted to use massive battleships for direct assault. The Crystal Collective preferred small, fast ships with stealth technology. The Trade Federation insisted on protecting their cargo routes above all else. The Altarian democracy demanded that all decisions be voted on by their military council. After 6 hours of arguing, Admiral Zek Vorthok ended the meeting in frustration. "We will continue to fight separately," he announced. But everyone knew that separate efforts would fail against the coordinated pirate fleets. The economic collapse accelerated when the Galactic Currency Exchange finally shut down completely. The quantum computers that managed currency trading had been overloaded for months without proper maintenance when they finally crashed, taking all trading records with them. Panic spread across the galaxy. Kevin Johnson watched the currency markets from his office on Earth. The Hegemony credit had lost 80% of its value. The Trade Federation standard was worthless. The Crystal Collective had returned to bartering basic goods because no one trusted their electronic currency anymore. "The entire galactic economy has reverted to primitive trading," Kevin reported. "To Earth's leadership, they're exchanging raw materials for food like ancient civilizations did thousands of years ago." But the worst crisis was happening to the transportation network that connected the galaxy. The Nexus gates were failing one by one. Each failure cut off entire regions from galactic civilization. Dr. Carl Nelson had designed the quantum stabilization systems during his 20-year career as a physicist for the Galactic Transit Authority. His innovations had made the ancient gate network reliable and efficient. But the aliens who inherited his systems had never understood the underlying science. The Nexus Gate serving the Outer Rim sectors flickered and died on a Tuesday morning, stranding 40 billion inhabitants. The gate connecting the core worlds to the industrial sectors followed 3 days later. Each failure sent shock waves through the remaining parts of galactic civilization, Captain. Pete Davis monitored alien ship movements from his defense platform. Near Earth, the reconnaissance probes had been replaced by larger ships carrying what appeared to be diplomatic equipment. But the aliens weren't requesting permission to enter human space. They were simply waiting at the boundary, hoping someone from Earth would contact them. "They're too proud to ask for help directly," Pete reported to Earth Command. "But they're desperate enough to sit out there for weeks hoping we'll make the first move." The crisis reached a turning point when the Altarian democracy split into 14 separate factions. This had been the most stable government in the galaxy, known for peaceful transitions of power and reasonable policies. But their biotechnology networks had failed, disrupting the neural implants that allowed their citizens to participate in the democratic process. Commander Dan Rogers studied the intelligence reports from Altarian space. Their entire political system was based on technology that humans developed and maintained. The neural networks let millions of citizens vote on issues in real time. Without those networks, they can't govern effectively. The Altarian military had split along the same lines as the civilian government. Some factions were fighting each other for control of key systems. Others had simply declared independence and stopped following any central authority. The most advanced democracy in galactic history had become a collection of warring city-states. The Crystal Collective faced an even more terrifying prospect. Their species functioned as a hive mind, with individual members connected through biotechnology that allowed them to share thoughts and emotions. Human scientists had designed the neural interface technology that made this connection possible. As the interfaces began to fail, the Crystal Collective literally began to fall apart. Individual members lost connection with the hive mind and found themselves alone for the first time in their lives. Many couldn't handle the isolation and simply stopped functioning. Others became violent as they struggled to understand individual identity. Dr. Lisa Parker, Earth's former senior diplomat, watched reports of the Crystal Collective's breakdown with professional concern. "They're not just losing their government," she told President Martin Hayes. "They're losing their identity as a species. Without the hive-mind connection, they don't know how to exist as individuals." The food crisis spread to the core worlds when the agricultural systems on New Garden failed completely. This planet had fed 200 billion people across 15 star systems using crop modification techniques. Developed by human botanists, the genetically modified plants required precise environmental controls and regular genetic adjustments. To remain productive, alien farmers had learned to operate the equipment, but they didn't understand the science behind it. When the crops started dying from a new plant disease, the aliens couldn't modify the genetic code to create resistance. 100 billion people faced starvation within 6 months. The core worlds, which had been the center of galactic civilization for millennia, began to empty as refugees fled to find food on other planets. But those other planets were having their own problems. The medical crisis had spread beyond the nanobots. Hospitals across the galaxy were shutting down as diagnostic equipment failed without human technicians to maintain it. Surgical robots stopped working. Life support systems malfunctioned. Even basic medical supplies were running out because the production facilities couldn't operate without human expertise. Commander Sarah Thompson received a classified report that made her call an emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council. "The Scarith Imperium has begun a major military expansion," she announced. "They're taking advantage of the Confederation's weakness to conquer systems they've wanted for centuries." 1 year after Earth's withdrawal, the galaxy was dying. Intelligence Director Kate Johnson stood before President Martin Hayes with reports that painted a picture of complete civilizational collapse. 3 member species of the former Confederation had simply ceased to exist as organized governments. 7 others were on the verge of total breakdown. The Altarian democracy, once the most stable government in known space, had split into 23 warring factions. Their capital world was burning as different groups fought for control of the few remaining functioning systems. The neural network technology that had allowed millions of citizens to vote together failed completely without human maintenance. The fighting has spread to 12 of their core systems, Kate reported. Without their communication networks, they can't coordinate anything. Each city-state is acting independently, and most are fighting each other for resources. Ain't the Crystal Collective faced an even worse fate? Their hive mind had been fracturing for months as the biotechnology that connected their thoughts continued to deteriorate. Individual crystal beings, suddenly alone in their own minds for the first time in their species' history, were either going insane or dying from the psychological shock. We estimate the Crystal Collective has lost 60% of its population, Kate continued. The survivors are scattered across 40 different worlds with no central government or coordination. They're essentially extinct as a functioning civilization. President Hayes studied the reports with growing concern. What about the others? The Vorthon Republic is gone, completely. Their food distribution crisis led to mass starvation, then civil wars, then total governmental collapse. The surviving Vorthines are refugees scattered across other systems, begging for food and shelter. Commander Don Rogers entered the briefing room with more disturbing news. His job was monitoring alien attempts to reverse engineer human technology, and his latest report showed the depth of their failure. They're getting desperate, Dan reported. The hegemony has assigned their top scientists to crack our quantum encryption. They've been working for 6 months and haven't made any progress. The Trade Federation is offering massive rewards for anyone who can rebuild our shipping algorithms. No one can even understand how our code works, let alone improve it. The aliens had always assumed that human innovations were simply clever applications of basic principles that anyone could learn. They never realized that human technology was built on centuries of accumulated knowledge and unique ways of thinking that couldn't be easily copied. Dr. Frank Miller's economic algorithms weren't just computer programs. They incorporated an understanding of market psychology and risk assessment that came from human experience with uncertainty and competition. Alien economists, who had lived in stable, planned economies for millennia, couldn't grasp the concepts behind free market dynamics. Similarly, human military tactics weren't just battle plans. They reflected human understanding of chaos, adaptation, and creative problem-solving under pressure. Alien military thinking was based on rigid hierarchies and predetermined responses that fell apart when faced with unexpected situations. The economic situation grew worse when the galactic currency exchange building was abandoned completely. The quantum computers that had managed interstellar finance for 2 centuries sat dark and silent, without human programmers to maintain them. Systems had crashed and taken the economic records of entire civilizations with them. Kevin Johnson received reports from his contacts still working in alien space. The hegemony has returned to a barter economy, he told Earth's leadership. They're trading raw materials for food like primitive societies did thousands of years ago. The Trade Federation exists only on paper. Most commercial activity has stopped completely. The military crisis reached a breaking point when the Scarith Imperium launched their largest offensive in galactic history. Their war fleets, no longer contained by effective Confederation resistance, swept through system after system with brutal efficiency. General Paul Roberts monitored the Scarith advance from Earth's military command center. The warrior species had learned from decades of fighting human-led Confederation forces. They knew exactly how to exploit the weaknesses of disorganized alien military responses. The Scarith have captured the core industrial sector, Paul reported. 15 billion civilians are now under their control. The Confederation fleets can't mount any coordinated defense. The alien military commanders were trying to use the same strategies that had worked when human officers provided coordination and tactical innovation. But without human leadership, the strategies fell apart. Ships couldn't communicate effectively. Supply lines collapsed. Battle plans were too rigid to adapt to changing situations. Admiral, yes. Gev Korthok of the hegemony made one final attempt to organize joint military action. He sent messages to every remaining military force in the galaxy, begging them to unite. Against the Scarith threat, the response was pathetic. Only 6 military organizations agreed to participate, and they couldn't agree on anything. The meeting lasted 3 days, and ended with the alien commanders shouting at each other in different languages, while the Scarith continued their advance. Meanwhile, the medical crisis had spread beyond anyone's worst predictions. Dr. Amy Roberts received intelligence reports showing hospitals shutting down across dozens of worlds. The medical nanobots that had extended lifespans for countless alien species were now killing their hosts. The nanobots are treating normal biological functions as diseases, Amy explained to the Earth Science Council. Without regular software updates, they've started attacking healthy organs. We estimate 50 billion aliens will die within the next 6 months if this continues. But the aliens still refuse to offer fair terms for human assistance. They continue to demand free help, while offering nothing in return. Some even suggested that humans had a moral obligation to save alien lives, regardless of how they were treated. The transportation crisis became absolute when the Nexus Gate network suffered cascade failures. The ancient portals that had connected the galaxy for millennia were shutting down faster than anyone had predicted. Dr. Carl Nelson's quantum stabilization technology had made the gates more efficient, but it had also made them more interdependent. When one gate failed, it put extra stress on the remaining network. As more gates shut down, the surviving portals became overloaded and failed even faster. We've lost 60% of the gate network, reported the transportation analysis team. Entire sectors are completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Some worlds haven't had contact with outside civilization for 3 months. This isolation made the food crisis even worse. Planets that depended on imported food were facing starvation with no way to request help. Agricultural worlds couldn't export their crops because there was no transportation network to move them, Captain. Pete Davis continued to monitor alien ship movements from his defense platform. The small reconnaissance probes had been replaced by larger vessels that looked suspiciously like invasion scouts. They're mapping our defensive positions, Pete reported to Earth Command. Some of these ships are carrying military equipment. I think they're planning to try something desperate. The intelligence was confirmed when Kate Johnson intercepted communications between several alien governments. The messages were heavily encrypted, but human code-breaking techniques were far superior to anything the aliens possessed. They are discussing something called Operation Reunion, Kate reported. From what we can determine, they're planning to capture human civilians and hold them hostage until Earth agrees to rejoin the Confederation. President Hayes felt cold anger at the suggestion. They want to kidnap our people because they're too proud to admit they need us. It gets worse, Kate continued. Some factions want to attack human colonies directly. They think they can force us to surrender by threatening innocent civilians. The alien leaders were so desperate that they were considering actions that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. The same species that had dismissed humans as inferior were now planning to use violence to force human cooperation. Dr. Lisa Parker, Earth's senior diplomatic advisor, reviewed the intercepted plans. With growing alarm, they're not thinking rationally anymore, she told President Hayes. Desperation has made them dangerous. They would rather destroy what's left of galactic civilization than admit they were wrong about humanity. The situation reached a crisis point when the Confederation Council met in what everyone knew would be their final session. The Great Chamber on Haven's Point was only half full. Many governments had collapsed completely, while others were too busy fighting civil wars to send representatives. Elder statesman Vrex Maladar, the oldest member of the council, stood to address the remaining delegates. His species had been part of galactic civilization for 3,000 years, and he had personally witnessed the rise and fall of dozens of governments. My fellow beings, he began, his voice shaking with age and exhaustion. We face a choice that will determine whether our civilizations survive or perish completely. We can continue to pretend that we don't need human expertise, or we can admit the truth that has become obvious to everyone except ourselves. 18 months after Earth cut all ties with the galaxy, President Martin Hayes stood before the Earth Assembly holding a message that would change the course of galactic history. The formal request from the Confederation Council had arrived 3 days earlier, and the debate over how to respond had been fierce. "They're asking for help," Hayes announced to the packed chamber. "But after everything they've put us through, the question is whether we should give it to them." Senator Claire Davis stood up first. "Mr. President, we have reports of entire civilizations collapsing. Billions of innocent lives are at stake. How can we just watch them die?" Senator Ryan Cooper disagreed. "They treated us like servants for 70 years. They laughed at us when we left. They planned to kidnap our civilians when desperation set in. Why should we trust them now?" The debate continued for hours, but everyone knew the real decision would come down to the terms Earth would demand in exchange for helping save Galactic. Civilization Ambassador Carol Turner had been chosen to lead Earth's negotiating team. She was tough, experienced, and had no illusions about alien attitudes toward humanity. As her ship approached Haven's Point, she reviewed the list of demands that Earth's leadership had approved. The requirements were revolutionary. Humanity wanted complete equality in all galactic institutions, with representation based on contribution rather than population size. They demanded fair payment for all technological assistance and shared ownership of any innovations they helped develop. Most importantly, they insisted on human leadership positions in areas where human expertise was superior. When Carol's ship docked at Haven's Point, she was shocked by what she saw. The once grand space station looked like a refugee camp. Broken equipment filled the corridors. Emergency lighting flickered constantly. The air recycling systems were making ominous grinding noises. The aliens who greeted her delegation looked terrible. Chancellor Crix had lost weight and moved with obvious exhaustion. Elder statesman Vrex Maladar seemed to have aged decades in just 18 months. These beings who had once commanded the respect of the galaxy now looked like desperate survivors. "Ambassador Turner," Chancellor Crix began, his voice hoarse with fatigue, "thank you for coming. We know this meeting is long overdue." The conference room where they met had been magnificent once. Now half the holographic displays were broken, and the climate control system was failing. Carol could smell the fear and desperation in the air. General Paul Roberts accompanied the delegation to provide military assessment. What he saw in the briefing materials was worse than Earth's intelligence had predicted. The Scarith Imperium now controlled 40% of what had been Confederation space. Their advance toward the core worlds was accelerating as alien resistance crumbled. "How long before they reach the major population centers?" Carol asked. Admiral Zek Vorthok answered with obvious shame. "For months, maybe less. Our fleets cannot coordinate effective resistance. Every battle ends in defeat and retreat." Dr. Stephen Clark, Earth's chief scientist, reviewed the medical reports with growing alarm. The nanobite crisis had spread beyond anyone's worst predictions. 57 billion aliens were dying from medical technology that was supposed to heal them. "We can stop the nanobite failures," Stephen announced, "but it will require complete access to all alien medical databases and full authority to redesign their healthcare systems." The alien representatives looked uncomfortable. They were used to keeping their scientific knowledge secret from other species. Sharing complete access to their medical databases would make them vulnerable to Earth in ways they had never considered. "Guarantees do we have that humans won't use this information against us?" asked Dr. Yelkorthok of the Medical Alliance. Carol looked at him with cold eyes. "The same guarantee you gave us for 70 years. None. You'll have to trust us the same way we trusted you when we shared our technology freely." The economic negotiations were even more difficult. Kevin Johnson presented Earth's analysis of the galactic financial collapse. The numbers were staggering. Trillions of credits had been lost. Entire economic systems had reverted to primitive barter. Trade between star systems had almost stopped completely. "We can rebuild the financial networks," Kevin explained. "It will require human oversight of all major economic decisions. No more excluding us from trade councils or currency committees." Chancellor Crix struggled with the implications. "You're asking us to give humans control over our economic future." "No," Kevin replied. We're asking you to give humans equal participation in decisions that affect our shared future. The same thing we asked for 70 years ago.
Did the military?
Discussions were the most intense. The Scarif threat was immediate and existential. Without effective resistance, they would overrun the remaining core worlds within months. But stopping them would require complete reorganization of alien military forces under human command. Admiral Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to lead Earth's space fleet, presented the military requirements. Every alien military force must accept human officers in command positions. All communication systems must be standardized to human protocols. All battle strategies must be approved by human tactical staff. Admiral Zekforthok looked like he was swallowing poison. His species had commanded fleets for millennia. The idea of taking orders from humans was almost unbearable. "This is not partnership," he protested. "This is surrender." "No," Jake replied calmly. "This is competence. Your way of fighting has failed completely. Our way of fighting works. If you want to stop the Scarif, you'll do it our way." The negotiations lasted for 6 days. The alien representatives tried repeatedly to find alternatives that would give them human help without accepting human authority. But Earth's position was firm. Equality meant equality. No more advisory positions. No more second-class citizenship for the species that was saving galactic civilization. Dr. Amy Roberts led the medical negotiations with similar demands. Human doctors and researchers must have full authority in all medical facilities. Alien medical staff will report to human supervisors. All medical research must include human scientists as equal partners. The aliens were shocked by the complete reversal of roles. For centuries, they had been the leaders, while humans provided support. Now humans were demanding to be leaders, while aliens provided support. "You're asking us to become the servants?" complained Dr. Yelkorthok. "We're asking you to become partners," Amy corrected. "Equal partners who contribute according to their abilities. It's just like we should have been from the beginning." The breakthrough came when elder statesman Vrex Maladar spoke privately with Ambassador Turner. The ancient being had lived through the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations, and he understood what was really happening. "This is not about revenge, is it?" he asked Carol. "You're not trying to punish us for past mistakes." "No," Carol replied honestly. "We're trying to build a system that actually works. One where every species contributes their best abilities and receives fair treatment in return." Rex Maladar was quiet for a long moment. "We have been fools. We thought leadership meant commanding others instead of serving them. We thought superiority meant taking credit instead of sharing it. You're offering us a chance to learn what we should have understood long ago." On the 6th day, the Confederation Council voted to accept Earth's terms completely. The Terra Accords, as they became known, fundamentally restructured galactic civilization. Humans would take leadership roles in all areas where human expertise was superior. Aliens would maintain leadership in areas where their abilities were better. All decisions would be made by councils with equal representation based on actual contribution rather than political power. The immediate response was dramatic. Admiral Jake Morrison took command of the reformed Confederation fleet and immediately began implementing human tactical doctrine. The ships that had been losing every battle suddenly began coordinating effectively. Communication improved. Supply lines stabilized. Battle plans became flexible and adaptive. The first test came at the Battle of Nexus Prime, where the Scarif Imperium had gathered their largest fleet to assault the last major core world. The alien commanders who had suffered defeat after defeat suddenly found themselves winning for the first time in months, under human leadership. The Confederation fleet used tactics the Scarif had never seen before. Human officers coordinated complex maneuvers that confused and scattered the enemy forces. The battle that the Scarif expected to win easily became their first major defeat in over a year. Dr. Amy Roberts began emergency medical interventions across dozens of worlds. Working with alien medical staff who now accepted human authority, she stopped the nanobite crisis within weeks. The medical systems that had been killing patients began saving lives again. Hospitals that had been shutting down reopened under human management. Kevin Johnson rebuilt the galactic economic networks with human oversight and alien cooperation. The financial systems that had collapsed began functioning again. Trade routes reopened. Currency values stabilized. The primitive barter economies began transitioning back to modern commerce. Most importantly, transportation network was restored when Dr. Carl Nelson took charge of Nexus Gate maintenance.